Hello class, it's Brother Wilkinson, and I'm creating this narration to describe how to complete part one of the Unit 3 assessment. I've captured a large portion of my screen because I have various types of documents to show you, so I apologize for how messy this might look, but if you'll bear with me, I think this will help. The blueprint for an assessment contains two tasks. One is to describe the purpose, to understand exactly what you're trying to assess and how you're going to make use of the data. So that's the first task in our assessment. The second is to create a specifications table. Which objectives are you testing? What are the student-friendly versions of those objectives? And what methods will you use? So I'd like to start by just taking you to the prompt in Learning Suite. So using Learning Suite as the gateway to the prompt, I'm just going to select the content pages. I'm going to select Unit 3, How to Assess, and then we're in Week 10. So I'd select Week 10, Clear Achievement Targets Aligned with Methods. And then I come to the bottom of the Week 10 page, and I select the assessment purposes and assessment blueprint. And this gives me the prompt for this part of the assessment. So the prompt describes how to complete the assessment in a way that manifests what you know. The way you would do this is to download it as a Word document or to copy it as a separate Google Doc that you would rename. You'll eventually submit this as a document. So the way I would do it is I would just go to File and download as a Microsoft Word document. And this would allow me to put on my desktop the entire prompt for the assessment. So here's my Microsoft Word version of the assessment. You'll see that it talks about the two tasks and then defines the task, each in some detail. It also suggests that you go to the PowerPoints for weeks 9 and 10 to review the vocabulary and the things you should know about assessment so far in order to complete this part of the assessment. When you finish reading about Task 1, there's a place for you to enter the Task 1 content. Now I've written a sample of, I'll just paste it in here, a sample of the assessment purpose, just to show you what one might look like. So here's my assessment purpose draft. I begin with a description of the standard, the objective. So here's the standard, students will understand, etc. Here's the objective, investigate the development of the economy, and here are 4 indicators for the objective. So what I've selected is the 4th grade social studies standard and an objective for that standard. Then I've identified the rationale for my teaching this unit, and I've identified the audiences that will be using the data that I'm collecting. So I will be one of the people using the data along with my PLC, my students will use the data, and so forth. Then I have a paragraph for each of those audiences, and then a concluding statement. This is something under 350 words, so this would be an example of how you could complete the Task 1. Task 2 is an assessment specifications table, and the assessment specifications table is where you will enter your learning targets. You'll enter them into this table. So your learning target here, your student-friendly target here, the verbs, and the assessment method. So I've created a sample of this, and let me just drag it over. Here is a view of the assessment table completed. So I've inserted my standard and objective from the 4th grade core, and I've written my student-friendly learning target, and I've identified selected response and matching or multiple choice as my possible method for assessing it. And then target 2, I'm going to do a reasoning target, and those are my verbs. Here's my student-friendly learning target, and I'm going to use extended written response as my method. In target 3, I'm going to be doing a performance level target, and I'm going to use the performance assessment method. Here's my student-friendly learning target and the description of my assessment method. So this is how you complete the table. My final one is a product level learning target for knowledge, reasoning, and performance. I've got the way I'm going to assess it described, the student-friendly learning target, and so forth. So those are the 2 tasks required to complete part 1, and I'm recommending that you complete it this week to avoid having to double up as the weeks go by. Now, where did I get these learning targets? Well, I went to the Utah Education Network and I clicked on Core Standards and I selected Social Studies as my subject and just randomly picked 4th grade. And then as I read through the targets and got down to the standard and objective about the economy, I thought, okay, that's something I want to deal with. I'm going to take the standard number 2, students will understand how Utah's history, etc. And objective number 3, investigate the development of the economy. And there's the 4 indicators I put into my blueprint. So if you look back at my blueprint document, you'll see those indicators listed. Right here in my purpose statement. Okay, so then once I've got my objective figured out, I also looked at the links, and in these links there was some content. So here's some stuff on. That's not it. Here's some stuff on supply and demand, including some vocabulary, a description of supply and demand, which I would need to get into my brain before I could write assessment items in my assessment purpose. So that's where that came from. So, so this is just a brief little summary of how this works and how you can complete the assessment. I hope it helps. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to let me know.